Stood to reason that I was going to be bringing you this review for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Now, does this film continue with the downward spiral of the ever-expanding MCU, or does this film actually lift our spirits and bring the MCU back home with the Guardians? Let's talk about it. So welcome back to the channel, everyone, and I'm delighted to be bringing you this review. I truly am, for James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Now, I'm going to split this into two parts. I'm going to have a quick talk with a non-spoilery bit, then I'm going to jump into spoilers and talk about the film as a whole. And I will tell you when that occurs. Well, you won't miss it. I'll put a spoiler thing up on the screen. So, this film here, the basic premise, plot for the film, the Guardians are out there, they're living in nowhere, you know, the head of the dead god, much like what they were in the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special that we saw, or holiday special as it might be called. The film delves heavily into Rocket. It's a very Rocket-esque movie. The fundamental heart of this film and story belongs to Rocket Raccoon, exploring his origins, the impact of his origins, the impact of him on the Guardians team, what the Guardians team will do to save him, to help him out, whilst introducing the primary villain of the High Evolutionary. A fella who's obsessed. He's got a god complex, essentially. He wants to create the perfect Earth using animal species, playing with their DNA, trying to create the perfect creature, so to speak, and get rid of all imperfections. And Rocket Raccoon in the past was part of this line of testing. As we know, he was tested upon. Adam Warlock does return. Adam Warlock was teased at the end of Guardians of Galaxy Volume 2 with the Sovereign, the gold people, when they introduced Adam. He is in the film, in and out throughout. Obviously there's a lot of cameos, there's a lot of nods to the past two Guardians film, all this sort of thing. But ultimately this film it's a joy. It's, you know, having the Guardians of the Galaxy back on the big screen is fantastic. It's been quite a wait. I will say that tonally and thematically, this film seems a lot darker than what Marvel have been doing recently in their other stuff. It's like the other films started to copy the tone of the first two Guardians of the Galaxies, and then this film sort of taken away from it and explored themes that are far darker, which was great. The film has its funny moments between the cast, between the characters. It's not as heavily overdone as what it was in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which was quite nice and refreshing. But ultimately the film's got a lot of heart. It's got a lot of heart in it. Every character gets the opportunity to shine. So thusly, for me, for my money, this is a great Marvel film. Certainly taking the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy to the heights of maybe the Captain America trilogy, putting it on par as, I don't know which is the best trilogy in the MCU now. Yeah, so big thumbs up, big thumbs up. Now, I want to talk about the film properly. I want to dig into the spoilers, dig into those nitty-gritty parts of the film, and let's do it. So, yes, so like I said, so the plot of the film does follow heavily on Rocket Raccoon. We delve deep into his past and we get introduced to these other freakish animal creations that the High Evolutionary has been tampering with. These other characters that we haven't met before. So it fleshes out Rocket Raccoon as a character. Now, most of the time, modern day Rocket Raccoon within this film is laid on his back at death's door. This happens towards the start of the film. caused by Adam Warlock, and ventures deep into the final act of the movie. However, when you see Rocket Raccoon within the middle parts of the film, it's all him as a young creature with these other three, for want of a better word, freakish abominations that have been created. One a rabbit, one a walrus, and one an otter. Yes, so you've got that although that isn't missing from the main cast. You don't feel the loss of Rocket Raccoon interacting with the main core cast, because you still get him within the film. I feel that Adam Warlock as a character was sort of underplayed. Adam Warlock in the comics is a very powerful individual, and thusly he was made out to be at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 some big major threat, but a lot of his stuff, it doesn't come across like that. You know, we come to find out that him and the Sovereign have in themselves been, or the Sovereign have been created by the High Evolutionary as well. So he's essentially, you know, he can turn the off button if he wishes. That's the way he sees it with them as well. We do get the main female character back from Guardians 2, the leader of the Sovereign. Thusly, she gets killed. We're introduced to this planet. It's another version of Earth. You know, there's even a Statue of Liberty with the High Evolutionary instead. And he's created, you know, we've seen this in the trailer where he's created essentially Earth, but with animal-esque type creatures living there. But he hasn't got rid of the problems of Earth. You still see drug dealing between these creatures. You see, you know, violence and all this sort of a thing. And he decides that, well, actually, I'm going to destroy this Earth and restart again. And this is where his God complex comes into play, that he keeps resetting, and he's going to keep doing it and keep doing it until he gets things right. He doesn't care about destroying, killing, all this sort of thing. So in essence, he's very much like Ego in that sense. Now, when I say the film plays heavily into dark themes, because you've got these themes of genetic engineering, these themes of God complex and all this sort of a thing. The cast do well. The cast do really well. Obviously, we now have Kraglin, who's got the whistling and the dart that goes around. He's kind of ejected towards the start of the film. He's sort of like, well, you stay behind at nowhere and look after things there with Cosmo the dog, and we'll go off and have the adventures out there in space. He does come back into it later on into the movie, but for the most part, he is jettisoned, so we get that core team together, the core team that we've come to know and love. We do get a lot of cameos within the film. We get Sylvester Stallone returns a couple of times within the film. Keep your eye out for Howard the Duck, the fella from the first Guardians film where Peter Quill went to try and sell the circular globe thing with the Infinity Stone within it. There's all manner of stuff like that. This film's got sports a fantastic soundtrack, much like it does for Guardians 1, 2 and 3. However, I do feel that this is the weakest of the three soundtracks. The film itself doesn't play out like your standard first, second and third act like most films do. Structurally, it is more structured like the second Guardians of the Galaxy movie, which was very much a 5-act movie. This feels very much akin to that. James Gunn's writing is wonderful. James Gunn's direction is wonderful. It's really good to have these characters back on screen. Even though the High Evolutionary as an individual is playing God, we don't get a sense that he's, you know, that this is a sort of universe destroying threat or anything like this, not like what you had with maybe in the first Guardians or even the second Guardians. It feels like a more personable story to Rocket Raccoon. The film is definitely handed to him on a platter, and this Rocket, this is your story, this is your film. Obviously there's emotional beats with the other characters. You have the stuff between Gamora and between Peter Quill, which is fantastic because this isn't his Gamora and she knows it isn't, and she doesn't feel part of this team. Great character development for all the characters in it, for Mantis, you know, for Drax, for Groot. You know, they all grow as individuals as this film progresses, and things occur in the film that take them in directions and pastures green at the end of the movie. Now, if you've seen the film, you know that no one actually dies in this film, but there is a split with the Guardians. They sort of decide to go off and do their own thing. Peter Quill decides to head back to Earth, back to the place that he's been running from, the place that he's scared of, and this would explain the reason why he didn't hang around at the end of his last visit to Earth, at the end of Endgame, why he shot off, and why he didn't stay for long when visiting it. Or did he visit it when they were on Earth? I don't think he did in the Guardians Christmas special. That was just Drax and that. Anyway, Mantis goes off to explore the universe herself. She comes to realise that she's only ever done things for Ego, and she's only ever done things for the Guardians, and it's time for her to step out alone and figure out what she wants in life, which is fantastic. And she goes off with the big creatures that you see at the beginning of Guardians 2, the big ones with the teeth and the tentacles that she that are brought back into this film. Some of the core members do stay together on Nowhere. You do have Drax stay there, Nebula stay there. Again, Nebula is given more things to do with her arm and her robot. She can turn her arm into weapons. She's got all these upgrades from Rocket, who's obviously a wonderful engineer. So yes, there's a whole lot going on in this movie. It looks fantastic. It looks, it's colourful, it's bright, it's vibrant. But it looks otherworldly. It looks almost cartoony, almost silly. You know, when you've got Nathan Fillion popping up and the suits that they're wearing, they look stupid, but they work. They work for this film, for this environment, for this ecosystem of a movie that James Gunn has created, where everything feeds off of everything else. It just works. Any other Marvel film, you'd say, that doesn't work. Look at Ant-Man Quantumania, for example. They are Guardian-esque characters given to us down below in the quantum realm that don't feel right. There's something missing about them, but here they would be spot on. Now, for James Gunn moving on to DC, that is a huge loss for Marvel, and for the Guardians of the Galaxy, totally is. Obviously, there's always the possibility for these characters to return and to come back together, but I think that a new team will be introduced, possibly. I can see this. The franchise should carry on by introducing a new team. You know, the team is there with Adam Warlock and things like this. A really enjoyable movie. I had a lot of fun with it. I mean, I'd like to say it's Marvel getting back on top. I don't think it is. I think it'll just be like a kind of blip in Marvel's tenure, in that it's James Gunn who's done the previous couple of Guardians films. He knows what he's doing anyway with these characters. So I think really it's just a blip on and a downwards trend with an upward spike for the MCU. But nevertheless, it makes a wonderful film. Like I said, themes are carried through from the first film into the second, into this, and resolution for characters and character growth to give you a place for these characters to end up that feels worthwhile, feels that you've been on this journey with them, you've been on a journey of growth, and you've got there to this resolution with each and every one of them. Hats off to James Gunn, hats off to Marvel. A wonderful, wonderful film. That's all I've got to say. This is AJ, which was quite a bit actually, so I'm getting away. Comments down below if you've seen this film, if you liked it. If you didn't like it, I'd like to hear what you thought. Also, I haven't spoke about. Sorry, I didn't speak about the two end bits, the two after credit scenes. I'll leave them to you. I'll leave them to you. Enjoy the movie. Take care all, and I'll see you later.